This was a big swing game for the Cats as they went into Washington on this third game of their 4-game road trip and come out with a big win as they tie the Capitals in points for the wild card race. We're going to discuss how big this win it was for the Cats and where they stand in the wild card and everything else on today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, February 17th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube, and send in your screenshot of your subscription and your 5-star rating to whichever podcast app you listen to Locked On Panthers for your chance to win 2 free tickets to the Florida Panthers versus Chicago Blackhawks game on March 10th. Best of luck, everybody. So the Cats, it feels like we've been talking about this specific game for over a week and the importance of it. We've basically been discussing since the Pittsburgh game on January 24th of the team that the Panthers are chasing and marking this down. And of course, the Capitals without Alexander Ovechkin due to death of his father and won't be with the team for a little while. But the Panthers, they saw this as an opportunity to get 2 points in regulation and tie with the Washington Capitals for the final wild card spot, even though the Capitals do have a game in hand. But man, what a win for the Florida Panthers. And it's a perfect time to bring in my guest in on the show. It is a Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, and it's a victorious Fairbanks Friday. Nick, welcome back to Locked On Panthers.
Thanks for having me back, Armando. And yes, it is a great victorious Friday that we're going to have discussing here.
Yeah, man. And just when you think about just one game left on the trip, of course, you were at the game in St. Paul at the XL Energy Center, which the Panthers gutted out a win. They gutted out this one. Sure, they look like they ran out of gas on Tuesday against St. Louis, but they got the most important win of the road trip. They knew what was at stake. The Panthers even spoke about it in their morning availability about them being so aware of what was at stake and also the playoff probability had they lost in regulation versus had they won. It's about 43% with the win. If they lost, it would have gone down to like 20s as well. So just an overall big swing game as the Florida Panthers go into Capital One Arena. Their first game since they won Game 6 last year to advance for the first playoff series in 26 years, and they come out with a big win and winning the season series against Washington. What are your major takeaways tonight for the Panthers?
So number one, I feel like Florida left off where they, ended the last series in the playoffs last year. Carter Verhaeghe kind of, leading the way, not only with tempo, but he put up 2 more points tonight against the Capitals. And I think they said on the broadcast that he's averaging about 2 points a game in the last 8 games against the Capitals. So very happy to see him continue his dominance. Definitely somebody who deserved, all the accolades, all the praise that he got last year. But he's being even better this year, although it may seem like he's more streaky this year. But outside of just Verhaeghe himself, it just seemed like the team was ready to play from the start. They were dominating the Capitals, and I have to give it to the defense. For the first two periods, they were standing up to the blue line. They were not allowing anything through easy. And, if the Capitals did get a chance, at a shot, it was always to the outside. It was blocked, or Bob was right there to make the save.
Yeah, and Jeff Chikrin and Randy Moeller also spoke about it in their keys of the game about what they wanted to see out of the Florida Panthers. Two of them were special teams and outside speed for the Panthers. Sure, the Florida Panthers didn't score score on the power play in tonight's matchup, going 0 for 2, now 1 of 18 in the month of February. But the fact that they were able to use their speed to close in on what looked like the Capitals were starting to get in on rushes, and then the Florida Panthers just used their speed to just deny any shot opportunities for Sergei Bobrovsky. I know this is a little bit of an older squad for Washington. I just looked it up. They are the 5th oldest team in the NHL by average age. The Panthers are 12 for those wondering. And just with the start that the Panthers had as well, with protecting Sergei Bobrovsky, and then one of the goals leading into rush chances for a scoring opportunity as well. Just a big momentum changing game, 2 periods for the Panthers as well, as they protected their goalie. Only 6 shots on goal in the first period, and then just creating their rush chances. And also think about the type of goals that the Washington Capitals have. There were goals off of some strange bounces. It wasn't off the cycle neither. It wasn't too much of getting in front of the net as well. It's just it came down to some unlucky bounces for the Panthers as well.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I didn't see the first goal. I was busy taking care of something around the house, but I came back and saw the Nicholas Backstrom goal, which unfortunately Bob didn't see. I think Staal was kind of screening him, but I think he was also trying to block the shot. And then the goal, I think, by Kuznetsov goes off of Forsling and just bounces right behind Bob. So, sometimes you just got to throw the puck at the net, and good things happen. But unfortunately for the Panthers, it kind of put them back on their heels a little bit, and kind of raised my blood pressure a little bit, just because I'm like, okay, guys, you look great for 40 minutes. Now we're doing this with 7 minutes to go. We're really, not able to shut this down. And so, I just hope that Florida can learn from this, not to take their foot off the gas pedal, and that they stand up on the blue line and they don't give anything easy. So one last point is that I'm really glad that Bob played as well as he did in the first 2 periods, because he made the saves that he needed to keep the team in the game, and also for them to keep their lead, even with Lars Eller running into him and nothing being called. So, and that's something I will talk about later in the show.
Yeah, Lars Eller coming in with an interference on Carter Verhaeghe, crashing into the net, and then denying him, Lars Eller creating that rush. But also, I'm going to look at 3 stars of the game. It was Verhaeghe, Eric Gustafsson, and Alexander Barkov as the 3 stars of the game. I think that Gus Forsling is worthy of a star of the game as well, because the fact that he was just closing in on his speed as well, and then taking block shots, including one on the penalty kill that he was very uncomfortable going into towards the Panthers bench as well. And then scoring that first goal of the game, where Eetu Luostarinen on the give and go, drawing three red jerseys, and then Gus Forsling wristing it past Darcy Kemper as well. And also, the broadcast also mentioned about the Panthers tops in the league when scoring 5 seconds within a turnover, within getting a turnover. They said 5.1 on this one, but it's been happening most of the season when they do get on the forecheck, and then the defense isn't able to get set to block a shot and an open shooting lane for the Panthers as well. But man, just the fact that the Panthers were just able to just use their speed in the first 2 periods to not necessarily put this game in doubt, but deny really any kind of comeback that the Capitals tried to do.
Yep. They definitely showed that they were the better team and that they were the surging team. I mentioned it, before the show that this team looks a lot. This Capitals team looks a lot different without Alexander Ovechkin. Kind of, ruling about the the face-off circle in the offensive zone, but. They're going to have a long rebuild ahead of them, and I think Florida just needs to keep their foot on the gas pedal. And I know these other teams like Detroit and Buffalo have all these games to make up, but here's the thing: they got to win those games. So,
Yes.
don't pay attention too much to the scoreboard. Just take care of what you need to, and good things will happen.
Absolutely. And we're going to discuss that more in the next segment here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about our friends at Built Bar. And looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try Built Bar. We got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this season. So if you don't want to compromise taste, then man, I got the thing for you. What makes Built Bar so good? For starters, they're covering 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. What's even better is that they're healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section. Grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You could pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. Segment number 2 here on this Friday, February 17th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, a victorious Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. And even though Marc Staal took a pretty dumb penalty towards the end of the game, which the Capitals scored on the 6-on-4, he got his first goal as a Panther. And just let's talk about the elation of Matthew Tkachuk getting for Marc Staal getting his first goal, which was just a wonderful screen for Matthew Tkachuk up in front of Darcy Kemper. Just what do you think of that? Of that with the Panthers at the time going up 2 goals with being on the road.
Number one, it was a really big goal. The fact that Florida started the game with 2 goals from defensemen, which will only increase. I think they're either tied with the league lead or they're very close to the top from goals by defensemen. So hats off to Marc Staal. I know he's been working hard. He's gotten better as the season's gone on. I'm not saying he's perfect because, I think first couple podcasts that we did early in the season, it's like, why is this guy in the team? But he's been better as of late. His defense has been very good. He's been blocking a lot of shots. So I think he was very deserving of this. And the elation that Matt Tkachuk had after that goal scored, it shows the unity that this team has and that they really do care for one another. And that, I think Mark's been looking for that goal for a while because it was supposed to be his 50th of his career. And, he just likes to rip it and just hasn't had the luck. And, tonight was, during probably the biggest game of the season, probably at one of the biggest junctures of the game because, the Panthers are only up 1 and they're notorious, unfortunately, for giving up leads. So going up 2-0 against, a possible playoff foe was really big. So very happy for him.
Yeah, as am I. And Colin White as well, a guy who has been in and out of the lineup as well. Has battled injuries in his career, bought out by the Senators, and then no Sam Bennett tonight for the Panthers, but of course with Etu going up a line, and then for we didn't know how the minutes were going to be distributed for Paul Maurice, and of course with the lead as well. Paul Maurice it made Paul Maurice's job a little easier when distributing ice time as well. So and then the Bob stop on Lars Eller was on the White and Lundell rush. So and also there was a lot of self-inflicted wounds for the Capitals in the first 2 periods. They were just misconnecting on passes, which is what led to the Alexander Barkov goal. And let's talk about that because that was just over a minute after TJ Oshie's slap shot was deflected off of Dylan Strome and in. And using Denisenko as a decoy. And then if you look at the replay again, Brandon Montour was the trailer, just ready to take a one-timer if Alexander Barkov decided to do a drop pass there. How beautiful was that no-look shot for Alexander Barkov?
I think I put it on Twitter after it happened. One word: dirty. The fact that his head didn't turn at all. He was looking at who was he looking at? He was looking at
He was looking at Denisenko.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't think of his name. Yeah, he was just looking at Denisenko and didn't even turn his head, and he put it 5-hole. It's not the first time he's done that, by the way. I think it's the second or third time he's done it in a game, and it's just, it makes me think of what Keith Yandle said to him, a couple of years ago during a shootout. Is this game even fun for you? I mean, the fact that he's able to do something like that so just casually is ridiculous. So, but outside of that, it was a huge response goal. Florida needed that, just to kind of keep their foot on top of the Capitals. And, hey, he had to come up big tonight. I'm glad that he came to play, and he had a multi-point game as well.
Yep, and I tweeted after 0% chance that Alexander Barkov was passing that. Nothing against Denisenko, even though there were times where I thought Denisenko drew penalties and they didn't call it. There was a time where I felt like his stick was slashed out of his hand, and then he was cross-checked from the back, but no calls for Denisenko there as well. And there was also Gudis' stick that was pulled out of from the Washington bench into theirs, and then the Panthers, I believe they drew a penalty after that as well. No, they did not. But also the Panthers going after Lars Eller, TJ Oshie. Everybody was grabbing a dance partner as well because and even when Tkachuk was pissing off a little bit the Capitals there, that even if he was just casually skating there, that they were just grabbing him, and then scuffles broke out a little bit. So what do you think of those?
Definitely. And I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here, but I kind of lost some respect for TJ Oshie tonight. I don't know what happened between him and Lomberg, but it just seemed like he really lost his cool, and which is why he got the game misconduct penalty and why Florida went on the power play. But some of the penalties that he drew tonight were not even penalties. I know that there was one on Montour that they called that he was holding, and Oshie just went down on one knee like he just got shot. And, for you to say, about the Marc Staal penalty where he did cross-check him, yeah, that was a cross-check, but I also felt like he went down and he sold it pretty well. Like, he couldn't get up. Like, come on, dude. Like, you've been in the playoffs. That's your position. You get cross-checked all the time. Like be a professional. So I'm okay with it. Like, the fact that my fourth line agitator was able to get under probably their best player's skin, I'll take that all day. And that Matt Tkachuk was there to, back Lomberg up. As Goldie said, this is a player that we've been waiting for, a guy who's in his prime. He's going to score 100 points, hopefully, every season. He's going to put up 35, 40 goals, and he can do everything. So I don't think Florida's had a player like this outside of maybe Alexander Barkov on the team ever. Somebody that's got all the tools. So just very happy that we have him for 8 more years.
And let's not forget the non-call that Oshie had, possibly boarding Marc Staal towards the end boards as well. And then credit to Lomberg for drawing that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on TJ Oshie. And then Goldie with another beautiful line in the third period on the Montour penalty, a penalty for playing great defense as well. But still, the Panthers, they put a little bit of a scare, but we spoke about how it wasn't really the Capitals really setting up too much off the cycle, and the Panthers were just creating opportunities off the rush, and Panthers keeping them to the perimeter. And there was even a time where Dmitry Orlov had a grade A opportunity all alone on Sergei Bobrovsky, and he misses the net. So it was a just combination of the Panthers using their speed and the Washington Capitals just missing out on their opportunities.
Most definitely. And, I have to say, you have to be a good team to be lucky, and you have to be a bad team to not have any luck. I think the Capitals have kind of run out of their luck for this season. Unfortunately, as we spoke, Ovechkin's, away from the team because of the death of his father, and, condolences to him and his family. But I don't think the Capitals have much left in the tank for the rest of the season. So I'm just happy that Florida was able to kind of weather that wave at the end of the game and pull out a win. So are they playing again this season, or is that it?
Next matchup is April 8th in Washington, their third and final matchup.
Okay. So looking forward to that one. Hopefully Verhaeghe can put up another 2 or 3 points.
Yes. And before we transition over to segment number 3, a little bit of a correction. The power play goal that the Washington Capitals did score was on the Brandon Montour penalty, not on the Marc Staal penalty.
Yeah.
So apologies for messing that one up, everybody. But Sergei Bobrovsky, before we do, 70 of 75 against the Washington Capitals this season, come for good enough for a .933 save percentage on the season for Bobrovsky against the Caps. So wish the Panthers could play them every single day. So, and of course, Verhaeghe scoring his 2 points, averaging the game. Just a good matchup for the Panthers. But let's transition over to segment number 3 to talk about where the Panthers stand as far as the standings and how a certain scenario in the tiebreakers can favor the Cats. We're going to discuss this and more on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Third and final segment here on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. And Nick, the Panthers now tied with Washington in points, 62 on the season. Washington does have a game in hand, and with one matchup left, we spoke about April 8th in Washington. Mm-hmm. But here's one tie-breaking scenario that favors the Panthers with all the teams that are chasing along with the Panthers for that final spot, where the Florida Panthers, the first tiebreaker is regulation wins. The Florida Panthers have 25 of them. And of course, we've spoken about the Panthers losing all those overtime games, their record not being great and all that. And only 3 of them coming after overtime, after regulation, excuse me. Panthers have 25. New York has 23. Buffalo has 20. Detroit has 19. And double checking on the score of Red Wings Flames, it's now 3-2 Detroit. So Detroit is quietly creeping up in the wild card race after winning four games in a row. Just great position for the Florida Panthers to be in, and it's even bigger that the Panthers have this regulation wins tiebreaker in their favor.
Most definitely, and they need to keep playing solid games. They need to come out hard. They need to come out fast, and they need to score first. I think their record is much better, when they score first rather than giving up the first goal. This team does not come from behind very well this season as compared to what they did last season, where they literally were the comeback Cats. So you'd like to think that the team is a little bit more stable now. It's not just run and gun. They're actually really trying to play defense, trying to shut down the opponent and everything like that. So I think that's more of a sustainable system. And, we'll see what happens. I mean, you said New York's got 23. Panthers passed them. They're above 1 point. They're tied with the Capitals. And the Capitals have how many wins regulation? Like 20.
20, hold on. I just had it right in front of me. Hold on.
It's all right.
I know the Islanders have 23 while the Capitals have 22.
Okay. So right there, the top two teams that, Florida basically is in jockeying for position right now, they have 2 to 3 wins above them. Now, you think about the other teams that they're trying to, beat out right now with Buffalo and Detroit. Those teams are winning or they're gaining points to be in overtime. Detroit did that last night. They barely escaped Edmonton. Now they're leading Calgary, which between you and me, they're not going to hold that lead going into the third period. They're famous for letting that go because they were up, I think, 3-1 or 4-1 last night, and they let it go to McDavid. So fingers crossed right now that I'm going to say this very lightly, that Detroit blows it and they lose it. That way, one of the games, that they have in hand, they lose, and Florida doesn't have to sweat it out so much after tonight.
Yeah, and and even if they do end up winning it after regulation, it won't count towards that tiebreaker, which is basically saying you earned this in this period of time. You are more worthy of going to the postseason. And just looking back at, I just want to look back at just this this third period for the Panthers. Of course, we spoke about the Panthers getting up, going up 4-1 at the end of the second. Third periods have been a struggle for the Panthers. I haven't checked what their goal differential is recently, but also their power play going cold. Penalty kill was pretty good until in the last ever since Eric Staal came back, but of course giving up 2 of them on the night. The Panthers, it's crazy. This type of game that they had tonight, we thought about. It kind of sent me a little bit of flashbacks to the series last season where they struggled on the power play, and just used their even strength game to lift them up. And how much of a cause of concern is right for you right now that the Panthers power play has gone a little cold?
So the power play is definitely cold, but I rather them be cold right now than when it starts to matter. Probably when they start, coming home and having that huge stretch of games. If they don't figure it out by then I'll be concerned. You want to know what I'm really concerned about? Is all the damn penalties that they take.
Yes.
I think they're the most penalized team in the NHL this season.
By a lot.
It's just either no discipline or I actually looked at a chart. They are probably the most penalized team as far as like it being in fairness. So like, are they getting the calls? Are they being called for like fluff calls? Kind of like tonight with Brandon Montour on TJ Oshie. Like, are a lot of those calls happening, or are the players just not being responsible with their sticks? Like, how many high sticking penalties are they taking this season? It just seems like every game there's 2 or 3. And it just, they need to figure out a better way to, I guess, put themselves in a position to not give up leads or give the opposition any type of, to possibly get back in the game.
Yeah, and then let's not forget also that there was another too many men on the ice penalty for the Panthers today.
I have an issue with that one. I have a big issue with that one. That puck hit the ref. It was not played by any player. Yes, they had 6 players, but one of them was basically off the ice. And when the puck hit the ref, that's when he hit the ref, and then he decided to call it. I was not happy about that. So that's 2 calls tonight that I felt like shouldn't have been called. And it just I don't know what's going on. Maybe Paul Maurice really grinded an axe against the reffing collective, and now they're just coming after the Panthers just because they don't like Paul. I don't know. Maybe, that's just my conspiracy theory mind going there.
Yeah,
balloons everywhere popping off.
But yeah, thankfully the Panthers were speedy enough to get by the Capitals. They eliminated a lot of the chances, even though the Capitals shot themselves in the foot, despite going to the box at a 5 times tonight. They still find a way to beat them at even strength. Bobrovsky comes out huge, like we talked about, 7 for 75 combined in the 2 games. Verhaeghe, 2 points. You get the most important win in the road trip, and their next opponent, the Nashville Predators. Last time I checked, they were down 4-0 against the Bruins. Double checking now, they're
5.
not. That score went final actually, 5-0. And Philip Forsberg is day to day, so he might not play on Saturday. So big opportunity. Depth scoring has been the issue for the Preds. If it's not Matt Duchene and Philip Forsberg scoring, they're not getting much contributions. UC Saros carries that team. So a big opportunity Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern for the Panthers. What are your thoughts going into that game?
You got to score early. You got to get into Saros' head and make him uncomfortable. And, you're playing against a team that's defensively minded. I mean, they've had defense galore. They're just drafting and churning guys out. You still have Roman Josi that's roaming back door. You still have Ekholm. I mean, they have some grinders there that, that they can do some damage. But if Florida plays the right way and they get another big game out of Bob, actually, I'm not going to say a big game. As long as he's average, I think Florida has a chance to take this one pretty easily. But at the same time, every single game that I think that they can take easily becomes, like I said, blood pressure inducing. And, we just hope that they, skate away with the 2 points. And I think they will.
I think so too. And even though and Nino Niederreiter was a guy that we were actually vouching for a little bit for the Panthers to possibly go after him, and he's third on the Preds in goals, and he's more of a bottom 6 guy on a contending team, and if that's your third highest goal scorer, you got a little bit of an issue there on your team. So a big opportunity ahead, and like you said, score first on UC Stars. That's even if they decide to play him in a matinee game. So you never know with the goaltending matchup on a early afternoon start. We could see Spencer. We could very well see Bob. But the way Sergei Bobrovsky's playing, I would put him in for sure.
100%. 100%. His best game in the season was against Minnesota. Bar none. Like the fact that seeing that live and how he was able to get around to everybody to make those stops and what he did in overtime was ridiculous. They wouldn't have won that game if Spencer was in there. I'm sorry. They wouldn't. No, that game was over probably after the first period. Or no, second period. I'm sorry. Panthers dominated the first period. But yeah, Bob is playing on another level right now, which is great. He's really been one of the reasons why they've turned around the season. You got to let him, stay in that groove and let him play.
Yes. Absolutely. And I agree. I agree 100%. So, Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, a victorious Fairbanks Friday edition. Let everybody know where they can find you online.
Armando, as always, thank you again for having me on. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Prudentia0, and I look forward to coming back next week. Who are we playing next week?
Next, pulling up the schedule. Actually, no game Thursday night. They'll be home against Buffalo on Friday. So another big game coming up.
We'll have to talk. We'll have to talk.
Definitely. So thank you so much, Nick, and I will see you next week.
See you, sir.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone, and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. They can make it the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On Sports Today. Peter Bukowski gives you a 30-minute or less podcast on the entirety of the sports scene. Listen to Locked On Sports Today on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. So I'm Armando Velez with Nick Fairbanks. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.